Hello and welcome to PMCLounge.com. Today we are talking about work performance domain. So by the end of this video, you will learn everything that you need to know about work performance domain. So there are a total of 8 performance domains defined in PMBOK 7. Work happens to be the 5th performance domain. If you want to go over all 8 of them, check out the second link in the description, which will take you to a playlist of all the performance domains that we have covered so far. The first link is going to take you to an article on this topic over at our official website, pmclounge.com. So if you're into reading article, first link. If you are into watching videos, second link. All right, so let's look at the roadmap for today on our discussion on work performance domain. Of course, we'll start off with an introduction to this topic. We will also talk about some definitions. We'll then go into the core topics such as processes, constraints, and stuff like that, managing resources, procurements, monitoring the work, communications. Finally, we'll end with interactions with other performance domains, because these performance domains don't work in vacuum, right? Some key takeaways. So that is what we are going to cover today. Let's start things off with an introduction. So project work establishes processes and keeps activities running smoothly. Now, before we go there, I'd like to tell you what this domain is all about. This domain is going to address activities and functions that are associated with establishing project processes, managing physical resources, and fostering a learning environment across the board, right? So this domain is all about keeping the project work running smoothly, ensuring that systems and processes are effective, and helping the team deliver outcomes efficiently. So now that you know what this performance domain is all about, reread this line, right? Project work establishes processes and keeps activities running smoothly. This means setting up how the team will get things done, managing the flow of work, and ensuring that nothing falls through the cracks. Project work enables the delivery of expected deliverables and outcomes. So, in other words, without well managed project work, the actual execution, right? So, without a well managed project work process in place, the team will not be able to successfully create what the project was designed to deliver. As an example, we'll again take an example of an e-commerce website, because that's what we have been doing for all these performance domains. So project work is going to ensure your coding, your design, your testing, your deployment, everything happens in a coordinated way. That is what project work is all about. This is the actual execution, right? So desired outcomes of project work. Efficient and effective project performance means that work is done productively with minimal waste and quality results. So we are looking for quality results and we are looking for minimal waste. That is what efficient and effective represents. Project processes appropriate for the project and environment. This ensures the methods that are being used to deliver the project fit the context. As an example, a small startup's project may not need very heavy documentation and auditing process and all that, right? But when you are talking about a regulated banking project, it might require detailed compliance processes to be followed. So project processes should always be appropriate for the project and the environment that it is being delivered in. Appropriate communication with stakeholders. This means that information is shared at the right time, in the right way also, right? Using the right medium. In an e-commerce project, that could mean updating sponsors about testing progress or informing customers that there's a soft launch that is coming up. Now, next point is about efficient management of physical resources. Physical resources are all your materials, equipment, tools, right? Everything is available whenever it is needed. So there shouldn't be any delay here. Effective management of procurements means your contracts, your vendor relationships, all of these should be handled smoothly. As an example, selecting the right cloud hosting provider for your e-commerce website is basically a procurement decision. So procurement is essentially part of the work performance domain. Improved team capability through learning and process improvement. This is going to ensure the project is not only delivering outcomes but also enhancing how the team works together. Let's look at some key definitions. So there are bid documents. As I mentioned, that procurement is basically part of the work performance domain itself. Bid documents are used to solicit responses from vendors. As an example, if you are outsourcing your payment gateway integration, you will prepare bid documents and then you will invite proposals from the sellers. Then there's bidder conference. This is a meeting which is held before the bids are submitted. This ensures that all vendors have the same understanding. For example, clarifying technical details of hosting infrastructure before vendors submit proposals. Now, I'd like to inform you, if you want to know more about procurement, definitely go ahead and check out our procurement management playlist. It will be the third link in the description. It is going to help you immensely when it comes to procurements. All right, let's talk about explicit knowledge. This is a knowledge that can be written down, like, process checklists for testing your e-commerce website, right? So this is knowledge that can be codified with words, with numbers, or even pictures. But then there's tacit knowledge, which is harder to capture because it lives in people's experiences and insights. So as an example, a senior developer may know shortcuts for optimizing the performance of the website, but they might not be written anywhere. It's just the developer's knowledge. So that is tacit knowledge. So these are some key definitions under work performance domain. Let's talk about activities in project work. Managing flow of existing, new, and changed work is going to ensure that tasks are prioritized correctly and scope changes are integrated smoothly. Keeping the project team focused means reducing distractions and ensuring the team is aligned with the project goals. Establishing efficient project systems and processes. This is going to ensure that tools and workflows help, they should not hinder the progress, right? As an example, if you're using a Kanban board to track backlog items, this is going to help everyone visually see where the backlog items are, what is a work in progress, and what's completed and what is yet to be done. Communicating with stakeholders. This is going to ensure your sponsors, your customers, even your vendors, they are kept informed about the progress of the project and any kind of changes required. So all of these, by the way, are the activities that you do in project work. You are the project manager, so you are definitely responsible and accountable for all of these activities. You might not be doing this yourself, but these are some of the activities that are required to be done. So you are responsible for getting these done. Next is managing materials, equipment, supplies, and logistics. This is essential when physical resources are involved. For our example of e-commerce website, this could mean networking equipment, this could mean even servers, right? Managing procurements and contracts ensures external vendors are aligned with project's goals and the timelines. Monitoring changes affecting the project. This is going to ensure that shifts in requirements, risks, or resources, all of these are managed properly. Finally, enabling learning and knowledge transfer. This means capturing what worked, what did not work, and ensuring that future projects benefit from the current lessons that you are drawing out of your project. So these all are activities that are required to be done as part of project work. If somebody asks you, what does a project manager do? This is actually a good slide. You can take a screenshot and say that these are all the things, all the stuff that a project manager does for every single project, and a project manager might be working on multiple projects at the same time, by the way. Okay, let's talk about project processes. So, processes are established and reviewed periodically to make sure that they stay relevant and they stay effective. Tailoring processes optimizes them for project needs. Now, large and critical projects need more processes, while small projects they can benefit from lightweight methods. So that is why all the processes need to be tailored based on the type of project, based on the environment that you're working on, based on even the product of the project. Now, lean production removes waste and increases efficiency. This happens by focusing only on value added activities. For example, you should avoid unnecessary reports in a fast moving project, right? So you should try to keep your reporting to the minimum as it is a fast moving project. If you send out a project in the morning, it is very likely that by the evening the project report gets obsolete because it is a fast moving project. Retrospectives and lessons learned are going to drive improvements. These are going to let the teams reflect on what worked and what did not work. Asking where the next best funding spent to prioritize. So you should always ask this. And this isn't something that you should ask every project team member, right? But this is something that you as a project manager should ask yourself. Where is the next best funding spent? This is going to help prioritize high value activities that are going to ensure that resources are invested in most impactful areas and not on non value added work. As an example, tracking conformance should not outweigh delivering outcomes, right? Just because you're tracking some sort of conformance, it should not outweigh delivering the actual outcomes of the project. If you're focusing too much on check boxes, then this is going to take actual project delivery time away from the team. As an example, if a PMO requires developers to categorize every hour of work into, let's say, rigid categories, this may consume significant time without adding real value to the project. That effort is best spent coding or testing the e-commerce website instead. So this is why it is important to ask where is the next best funding spent. Just because somebody is asking for some sort of compliance, is it the best use of your project team? So that's something to always ask. Now, I would also like to remind you about our PM 101 training session at this point in time. It is a free 1.5 hours training video, an absolute legend with over 500,000 views. If you're just starting off with project management, definitely take a look at this. All right, this is the agenda. We have already covered the first 5 topics. Let's talk about balancing competing constraints. Are you aware of the project constraints, by the way? So there is a triple constraint that we keep talking about. You can do a search about triple constraint on this channel itself if you are not already aware, and we'll touch upon it in this slide also. So constraints can include delivery dates, budget, quality, and even compliance. Each of these puts pressure on the project in different ways. Now, constraints shift throughout the project. A new customer request may increase the scope and it might require more time or more budget, right? That is why this is called the iron triangle of project management, where you have scope, cost, and time. And what happens is, if there's an increase in, let's say, scope, then it is possible that one other or even both of the other sides of the triangle increase, right? So that is why these are called constraints. Now, balancing requires trade-offs and negotiation with stakeholders. As an example, if the sponsor wants faster delivery of the e-commerce website, you may need to reduce the scope of work, or you might have to request for additional resources as well. Okay, so let's talk about maintaining project team focus. Assess short and long-term progress regularly to ensure the team is on track and aligned with project goals. Balance workload and satisfaction to keep the team motivated. If you overload the developers with overtime, they may produce results in the short term, but it is going to harm the morale and the quality of work in the long term. Focus on delivering value while maintaining the team health. As an example, an e-commerce team should balance delivering new features and avoid burnout by managing scope and deadlines realistically. So, this is very important. You should always focus on delivering value while maintaining team health. Do not commit to unrealistic scope or unrealistic deadlines. This is the biggest takeaway for project managers when it comes on managing your focus of the project team. Okay, project communications and engagement. Communications can include formal as well as informal methods. You've got meetings, emails, instant messages, reports, all of them belong to either formal or informal methods. By the way, here's where I would also like to urge you to check out the communication management knowledge area playlist. It will also be linked in the description below so that you get a detailed view of communications management. Now, information is collected, stored, and distributed as per the communications plan. As an example, using shared project dashboard for e-commerce testing updates is something that is distribution of information, right, which is collected from some place, stored at some place, and then being distributed as well. Ad hoc requests may indicate poor planning. If stakeholders constantly ask for updates, and if stakeholders ask for updates that you have already communicated, and these all are outside your planned reports or maybe even inside your planned reports, communication plan then needs adjustment for sure, because you may or may not be sending out the proper communication to begin with. And secondly, even if you're sending out proper communication, it is being sent in a way, maybe through email or maybe through meetings that nobody attends, that people are not getting that communication piece from you. So this is why it is important to keep a track of ad hoc requests for communication that you as a project manager receive, just so you can gauge how your communication engagement is going on, how engaged people are with the communications that you are sending out. All right, managing physical resources. Now, some projects require materials and supplies from third parties such as servers, hosting equipment, and even virtual resources like licenses in our e-commerce website project. Logistics planning ensures smooth delivery and usage of resources. For example, making sure the hosting environment is ready for developers to begin deployment. So whenever they want to do the deployment, whenever your developers or your release team wants to do a deployment, your hosting environment should be ready for it. So this is a sort of logistics planning here. Now, objectives include reducing waste, eliminating wait times, and ensuring safety as well. Now, we are although talking about e-commerce website project as an example, but there is also safety concerns when it comes to construction projects, for example, right? Because their physical resources might be very big and heavy, and you need to ensure the safety of your project team members, right? So proper planning avoids delays, like waiting weeks for these resources to arrive on your site, right? So that can also stall your project. So this is also something which is to be kept in mind when it comes to managing physical resources, because that is how you're going to eliminate wait times. You should also look into reducing waste. You should also ensure the safety of your project team members while dealing with physical resources. Now, working with procurements, many projects involve contracts and procurement, whether it's buying physical servers or any other physical resources, or even outsourcing. As an example, in the e-commerce website, if you're outsourcing your payment gateway integration, that also requires contracts and the process of procurement. Project managers are not required to perform the procurement process themselves, because there could be a contracting officers for vendor agreements, or there could be a procurement manager that you as a project manager might have to work with. So most project managers are not going to have direct contracting authority. Procurement policies define authority and procedures. These are going to ensure that contracts comply with the organizational requirements as well as legal requirements, at the same time meeting the project needs. So whenever it comes to procurement contracts, you will always have to make sure the legal side of things are covered. Okay, now continuing with working with procurements, we will also talk a bit about the bid process. And once again, I'd like to remind you, you can check out the procurement management knowledge area playlist in the description below. The link will be in the description below if you want to understand procurement process in much more detail. All right, so bid documents include RFI, known as request for information, proposal, or even the quote, depending upon the complexity of the purchase. For example, a proposal might be requested for a custom built payment system for your e-commerce website. Now, bidder conferences ensure vendors share a common understanding. This avoids confusion and it also ensures fair competition, because you do a conference, you invite all the vendors. For any kind of questions that any vendors have, you are answering, and the rest of the vendors are also listening to your answer. So it's not like somebody has access to some information that other vendors don't. Vendor selection considers criteria such as cost, quality, and even experience of the vendors. For our e-commerce project, the vendor with, let's say, a strong security experience may outweigh the lowest price quoting vendor, right? Your focus would be on strong security rather than lowest price in this case. Now let's talk about contracting. So contracts vary based on purchase size, scope, stability, and risk. For a small purchase, a simple agreement can also work. But when you're doing larger efforts, right, when you're dealing with larger purchases, you will require detailed contracts. Now, master agreements can combine predictive and adaptive elements. Now, what this point means is that you have a master agreement in place which has elements of both predictive as well as adaptive processes. So, if you are looking at an overall infrastructure, right, that you require to run your project or to do your work, then it makes sense to go the predictive way. That is, you ask the vendor to deliver everything in one go. But when it comes to, let's say, software updates that you need from the vendor, right, and this could be for any software that you are using for your e-commerce website, right? So when you need software updates, that's where an adaptive nature in your master agreement can also help, because you don't need all the software updates in one go. You can get software updates in a recurring fashion as well, right? So your master agreements with vendors can combine the elements of predictive as well as adaptive. Now, the last point on this is vendors become stakeholders once contracts are in place. From that point, once the contract is in place and contract is signed by all the parties involved, from that point, your vendors must be managed like the other stakeholders of your project. This is going to ensure alignment, and this is also going to ensure accountability. So I hope you understand how procurement can be something which is a bit more complex than rest of the way projects are managed, and that is by design. And that is also the reason why I mentioned that you as a project manager might not be responsible for procurements end to end. You will have a procurement manager or someone else from your organization to work with you on contracts. At this point, I would also like to remind you about our playlist section. This is where the gold is. If you're preparing for your PMP certification, or if you want to stay abreast with what's happening in the world of project management, head over to youtube.com/PMC Lounge /playlists. Everything is absolutely free. Okay, so we have covered 10 topics. Let's start things off with our 11th topic, which is all about monitoring new work and changes. So, what does this mean? Adaptive projects add new work to backlogs as needed. So, as and when needed, new work will be added to the backlog. As an example, new wish list feature, right? So, if you want to add a wish list on your e-commerce website, this feature may be added to the backlog for you to take care in future sprints, because right now you might be working on the cart, right now you might be working on something related to payment. Now, predictive projects manage changes through formal control processes such as change control board or reviewing the new requests. Now, I would also like to remind you that we actually have a playlist of change management. So if you want to know more about change management, change control board, and cab meetings and all that, definitely check out that playlist link in the description below. But for now, all that you need to know is that whenever new work comes in or whenever changes come in, adaptive projects are basically going to add them to the backlog, right? Whatever new work comes in, it gets added to the backlog. The backlog may be prioritized, and that's how it is dealt with. But when it comes to predictive projects, there are comprehensive processes at play here which need to be looked into. Scope changes require adjustments to resources, budgets, and even risks. So approving a new feature for, let's say, our e-commerce website may mean extending deadlines or adding more resources, adding more developers, right? So this is how you as a project manager need to monitor any kind of new work being added to your project or any kind of changes being proposed by the stakeholders. Learning throughout the project. Now, lessons learned and retrospectives improve future work by reflecting on successes as well as failures. Now, as an example, documenting which testing methods reduced bugs most effectively is a lessons learned. You might have been using different types of testing methods throughout your delivery, right? On each sprint, you might be using a different way of testing, and whatever that reduced the bug the most or most effectively, you should document that as lessons learned. Now, knowledge can be project specific or shared organization wide. So whatever knowledge that is generated as part of your project, it could be project specific, it has nothing to do with the rest of the projects in your organization, or it could be some knowledge that can be shared with the rest of the organization because they might also find it useful. Now, projects are going to generate both explicit and tacit knowledge. We talked about both of these knowledges in the key definitions as well. Explicit knowledge can be documented and shared easily. Tacit knowledge requires person-to-person sharing. All right, finally, continuous improvement increases efficiency and quality. Over time, the team delivers better results faster with fewer issues. And that is the whole deal with continuous improvement. That's what continuous improvement is after. Now, interactions with other performance domains. How does the work performance domain interact with other performance domains? So project work enables your planning performance domain, your delivery performance domain, and even your measurement performance domain by providing the structure and processes for everything else to function effectively. It also supports team collaboration and stakeholder engagement. Smooth processes means smoother interactions, better communication, and better alignment. Now, this performance domain also helps navigate uncertainty. Uncertainty is also a performance domain, right? While balancing the constraints. So whether deadlines shift or risks emerge, strong project work practices allow for these effective adjustments. Checking results. How do you check if your work performance domain is effective? Outcomes should match expectations of efficiency and effectiveness both. Work should be streamlined, not bogged down. Processes should align with project needs and the compliance standards required. As an example, the testing in our e-commerce website should meet both the business requirements as well as any kind of security regulations. Resources and procurements should be managed without waste. That means minimizing delays, controlling the costs, and ensuring vendors deliver as promised. Finally, some key takeaways from this performance domain: project work establishes processes and keeps activities running smoothly so that deliverables and outcomes are achieved. Effective project work balances constraints and maintains team focus, ensuring both progress as well as team health. Communication, resources, and procurements are critical parts of success. Without them, the project delivery is going to stall. Continuous learning and knowledge transfer improve outcomes, making future projects more successful. Finally, strong project work practices support all other performance domains. So, in short, this domain provides the foundation for everything else in project management. So, that is why this domain is so important. Now, I would also like to remind you about our VIP Pass. This is our YouTube membership program. There are a lot of perks. A lot of members have already joined this program to get access to these perks. There's a lot of bang for your buck. It is a very small fee for the return that you're going to generate. So definitely consider joining this channel. And that's all that we had in this video. I hope you were able to understand the work performance domain. Definitely check out the important links in the description below to continue your learning. Subscribe to this channel, share this video with anyone else who you think might benefit and help us grow the community. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.